everybody, welcome back to another episode of Tapped In. It's your boy Zaid. I'm joined with
Ayub.
Wasino.
and today we have a very special guest,
Salim.
Salim. We're gonna have to do the intro for you, man, because you're a prominent figure, man. You know, so a youth worker, in summary, but also someone who's grew up in areas similar to us, had an upbringing similar to us, and yeah, man, it's been a long time coming, and we just wanna peel it all back, man, see where you started from, how you got here, you know, what was it like, and hopefully find out a bit of things that we don't already know, you know. So
Before we get fully into it, I just want to say, it's definitely a pleasure to have you,
100%.
ready to pick your brain today, inshallah. So we'll see how we go, man.
Inshallah.
So for those who don't know you, we'll start with just a brief overview on yourself. So who you are and what brings you here today, man.
My name is Salim. I work within the education sector as a youth worker, as a educational consultant. I'm also, a soccer coach from the past. I do a bit of poetry, do a bit of, this and that. But yeah, ultimately, I think once we go through the story, you'll understand, the journey and all the different hats that I wear all the time. But inshallah, we'll get to that soon.
Yeah, for sure, man. Welcome to the show. I know, I guess in title it's, you are a youth worker, but I prefer to refer to you as an education consultant. I think that's more appropriate around some of the work I've been blessed to see firsthand. Allahumma barik. And yeah, man, I just think it's more suitable, So you guys haven't had the experiences yet, but, in the right times you'll be able to see some of the amazing stuff, like the ACE program, which we'll get into in a bit. And we'll go from there. But before we get into that, for the people who don't know you, tell us where you grew up and what was the environment really like in the time that you grew up, and I guess how you came here and what was it like for you,
Yeah, 100%. I was born in Somalia in 1993. That was during civil war, or they call it civil, but we know how much America had to play in that. But so obviously, had that experience from birth. My family fled to Ethiopia as refugees at the age of 1, and then I came to Australia at the age of 5. And one of the things that really had a defining factor in my life in that early stage is that during the war, I was still in the womb, and my dad had to actually decide between defending the country or trying to create a life for us elsewhere. So he actually came to Australia while I was still in the womb, and I didn't meet him till I was 5. Obviously growing up around a lot of alhamdulillah, very, very strong women. A lot of my mum, my grandmother, a lot of aunties, a lot of really strong women that helped raise me and helped me become who I am. And then I came here at the age of 5, and get to meet my father and with my 2 older brothers that came through as well. And then trying to go through the education system in Australia, trying to navigate that with with my parents, still trying to adjust to life here, learn the language themselves. And that's kind of the experience of a lot of young African families as well. That a lot of young people become the interpreters for their parents, take on a lot of responsibilities and leadership from a very young age, which does build character, but also, makes you grow up a lot faster than you'd like to as a child.
And I think people don't know that, like, the education setting at the time, it's not just, you were in school, Obviously what we see today and what it was back then was very, very different as a landscape,
Yeah.
So what would you say was a comparison between the two,
Yeah, I think there was obviously a lot less diversity when I was a young person going through education. I still have my grade 3 school photos, and I was the only black kid in the entire photo at Preston South Primary School. But alhamdulillah, I was blessed enough to have a really positive experience there. My 2 older brothers didn't have the same kind of experience, but for me it was a little bit different. And then we moved to East Preston Islamic College and spent about 6 years there, which allowed me to have a bit more of a diverse environment around me, which helped me shape kind of who I am and my values and sort of religion. It had its own challenges as well, but we won't get that too much. And I was able to thankfully finish my education at Reservoir High School, which was Reservoir District back in the days. And even though I was only there for a couple of years, I actually had the blessing of becoming the school captain there. So I think throughout my education, one thing that was really a blessing for me is that I had teachers and other sort of staff at school that saw things in me that I didn't even see in myself. So when I even, when I went for that captain, I didn't go for it, to be honest. But the way that school worked was that teachers will nominate students that they see leadership in, and then the students will vote. And I think that's kind of, a really beautiful way, because oftentimes leadership goes to the most confident kids that, always put their hand up, that always, show those behaviors of, discipline and paying attention, all that kind of stuff. But sometimes might not be the representation of the rest of the classroom or the rest of the school environment, So when you get those, you find those kids that are a bit more cheekier, that might have a bit more buy-in from students, that already have this natural leadership, but it's not geared towards the right direction, right? And you're able to actually, empower them to make better choices, but also give them the opportunity to utilize their leadership in a positive way. Then you have a more impactful leader. You have one that students will get behind more. So when students voted for me, I thought it was a prank.
Couldn't believe it.
I was not a confident kid. I hated public speaking. I had a massive stutter, which I still kind of have a little bit, but not as much.
We haven't heard it once.
Trust me, my stutter was bad. My dad's one was also really, really bad. So that's something I had to overcome, because now you're thrust into rooms with, the principal, the assistant principal. You're in front of the whole school doing assemblies and all those things, which, alhamdulillah, helped me have the opportunities to actually build some of those skills. So, and if I didn't have those people in my corner that saw that in me, I would have never seen that in myself, ever. So I think that's really beautiful, So despite some of the, challenges I had throughout schooling, I had people that also saw the strength in me, the positives in me.
Shout out to your teachers, because I think it's very important to, have, those teachers that actually genuinely care and that see and push you, because sometimes all it takes for a student is just that one person believing in them, where they don't have that representation, or where they're lacking that belief, and just having that one person believing in them can actually change them, which is really...
Just on that, forgive me if you see me on my phone, I'm literally jotting down, like based on your story, just jotting down things I want to ask you, because mashallah, it's very interesting. Just touching base on that, how important is that to have a support network? Like nowadays you see it, like I see in the educational system now, even in the justice system, there's massive support networks around young people
100%.
that they've got, either lived experience mentors, or they've got people from professional backgrounds and stuff like that, coming in and literally bringing out the potential out of them, you know what I mean? Which is mad. And I wish we had something like that back in our days,
100%. I think it's really, really important to have those people in your corner. But it's not just about, having people that have a title of, teacher or youth worker or, support worker and stuff. It's about the character of the person that's in those roles, and I think that's a really important thing, because sometimes, and I've worked in youth justice for about 5 years at Parkville College, and, I think a lot of times there's a lot of services that come in to support young people because, they have to, because that's how you make your money, that's how you work and stuff. And, the young people that go through those sort of experiences, oftentimes they're able to read people's character really quickly. So they know when someone's genuine in trying to support them, and they know when someone's, just doesn't really fully believe in them. And I've had a lot of, those experiences with young people where, we've come out of a meeting and they look at me and they go, they don't want me there, do they? And young people feel it in your tone, in your body language, in the way that you speak. And I think, education is the biggest protective factor for young people. So it's really important that they feel welcomed, they feel seen, and they feel heard in those spaces, because ultimately that's where they build the foundations for lifelong skills.
It's not easy to manage, sustaining work in something like Parkville College for 5 years, and I think it speaks to your character, but also your walk of life. Because I feel like, in my personal opinion, when you have faced adversity growing up in whatever setting that might look like, people connect to it, because there's a genuineness that can't be faked. And, it goes to show by being able to maintain that for 5 years straight is that the kids obviously responded and they absorbed some of the things you had to offer, That's what I think is a big thing, because even just going back briefly to what you said about coming here at the age of 5, people at that age are thinking about what's in the lunchbox. But you have obviously shifted from a whole different place to a whole new setting. And that's not easy. At 5 years old, there's not really a thing that's, I guess, supposed to be a thing, Alhamdulillah, of course.
And not only that, obviously having the parents that are navigating life in a different country as well plays a big part for, I think, a lot of us that, are first gens over here as well. Definitely. Let's go back to so schooling. So did you start your education, like the educational background, that started in Parkville for you, or
In terms of like
teaching or youth work?
youth
The
work,
there?
no, I went through a few different sort of phases in my career, both academically and professionally. And one of the things that is really important in my journey is that it wasn't very linear in terms of, you know, you get your bachelor's and then you move on to your career and all that kind of stuff. I think, you know, similar experience for a lot of young African people where your parents want you to become a doctor, a lawyer, engineer, those kind of things, right? And I think I tried my best to make them proud, but it wasn't really in my character to kind of lean into some of those careers, but I gave it a go. So I was studying pharmaceutical sciences straight out of year 12.
Nice.
Did it for a few years. It wasn't really for me. There was too much chemistry. And then I did health information management for a couple of years, which I learned a lot from in terms of data and how to utilize data, which I think has made me a more well-rounded youth worker. So that was something that definitely was beneficial, even though I didn't complete it. It was very beneficial. But throughout that time, I was able to actually continue to do things whether it was voluntary or, you know, it was job opportunities. But my first sort of entry into youth work was I started coaching around 18, 19 years old. So I used to play soccer at my local club, Heidelberg Stars. And then I stopped playing because I was like, you know what? I feel like I can probably have a bigger impact as a coach, which is like for 18-year-old, 18-year-old just says that, you know, I want to stop playing.
That's interesting,
You know, so I think I started coaching and I coached the under 15s, right? And I'm like 19 years old, so only like a 4-year gap between me and the kids that I'm coaching, right? And I've never coached before. I haven't done any of my trainings or badges and stuff, so I'm watching YouTube videos, right? before trainings, cool. I want to do this drill and I want to do that. In my first season, it was actually very interesting because we won our first 3 games by like huge margins, by like, you know, 10, 15 goals, some of them. And after the 3rd game, we had an option to actually move up 1 grade because like, you're too good for this grade. You can stay there and smash everyone if you want, right? Or you can move up 1 grade, right? But the catch was, if you move up 1 grade, right, you're already 3 weeks behind in the fixture list. So you're gonna start with 3 forfeits. Right. So you're going from the top of one level right to the very bottom of the other one. So, you know, I consulted with the boys that I was coaching. You know, and I said, listen, guys, this is an opportunity for you to prove something to yourselves, right? Because we can just stay in this league and just win it easy, right? And you can get a medal, right? Or we can go up and just, you know, challenge ourselves. And, you know, alhamdulillah, I had some amazing young leaders that rose to the occasion. They're like, you know what, let's do this.
Let's get it,
So we actually moved up to the higher level, and it was intense season. It came down to the last game, so we actually worked our way up to second place.
You're telling me the top?
Wow,
from 3 forfeits as well.
3 forfeits we were in second place. We were 2 points behind the top team, and we were versing them in the final. Right?
No way.
Yeah,
those YouTube videos must have been
before YouTube was
YouTube was the way,
I had one photo, it's black and white. Like, it wasn't that long ago, but
you put the black and white filter to give it some time.
Yeah, give it some history, you know what I mean? But alhamdulillah. So, you know, we got to the final game and you know, we had our team talk and stuff, and we versed the team prior, but we beat them. I'm sorry, they beat us. Right? But the way they beat us, their coach was very intense. Right? And I told the boys, I'm like, listen, pressure's not on us today, right? We came from 3 forfeits. You know, this. If we lose, it's all right. We tried our best. If we had those 3 games, we would have easily won it. Obviously,
taken it.
You know, but also the way that this coach coaches, right? And I think that's why, you know, I love youth work and I always love like psychology. Like, you know, the way the mind works, the way you know, behavior and stuff. I'm like, the longer we keep it at 0-0, even if we can nick a goal, right? This coach is gonna lose his head. Once he loses his head, it's a high pressure occasion. The kids are going to lose their head too, right? So, and then, you know, in soccer, once you start, and I always tell my boys, discipline is very important, right? Don't start arguing with the referee. You start arguing with the referee, the whole game's against you. All right, so we get into the game. You know, we score a goal. You know, we're defensively solid. We're keeping it together. They had like one player, we just took him out of the game, their best player. And then the coach starts getting into it. You know, he starts going face to face with some of my players. You know, I'm keeping my cool. The referee then obviously gets upset. But we also our keeper gets injured, so now we have no goalie, right? So now we'll have to pick a player, chuck him in goals. It was a crazy. You can't write it well. SubhanAllah, you know, Allah's the best of planners, and it was a picturesque movie. We ended up actually holding on, winning 1-0, and winning the final on winning the title on the final day. And then we went to states, and then we actually, we walked it in states as well. So we ended up being league and state champions. And I'm like 19 years old, learning, training, learning coaching off YouTube, But that was also another opportunity that actually showed me, if you push yourself, take risks and stuff, right? And obviously it showed those young people that I was coaching, right? Back yourself, Alhamdulillah. So through that opportunity, there was a job opening at Melbourne Victory. And they have like local clubs that they're partners with, and Hardup Stars was one of those local partners, right? So they said, listen, we have a opening for a community football coordinator. Each club, you're more than happy to put forward your best candidate. Beauty. And then Hardup Stars, with shout out to Abdul Salah and Abdul Ghani, right? They really believed in me. This is the importance of having mentors and having people that trust you as a young person. I was like 22, 23 at that point. They put me forward, I applied for the job, and then one of the questions they asked me was, you're the least experienced, right? And you're the youngest person applying. Why should we give you the job? I was almost like, you're right. I almost walked out of the room, but I was able to flip that into a strength and tell them, you're right. I am the youngest and I am the least experienced, right? But if you hire someone older than me that has a way of doing things and it's not your way, it's not going to work. Adapt, you're going to have to retrain them, right? But I don't really have a way because I'm still so young and green. You can teach me your way, and all I think about is doing that better and better every single day, And I ended up actually landing that job. So that was like my first sort of entry into, community work and community development. And then I got opportunities at Western Bulldogs and Islamic Council of Victoria, and then eventually into Parkville College. And at that point, I had no qualifications, and I was working on my Cert 4 in youth work. And then from that, did my Cert 4, did my diploma. I went to East West Islamic College as an employee, so my old school. Worked there for a bit, got an endorsement from the assistant principal to go straight into full circle moment.
Doing youth work there?
Yeah. So then I got an endorsement to go straight into a graduate certificate. So I skipped a 4-year bachelor, went straight from a diploma into a graduate certificate. And then into my Masters of Education Leadership. So alhamdulillah, I had a very interesting journey, right? That is a mix of, volunteering and, just winging it and finding opportunities. And I think, the important thing for young people is, there's every single opportunity I had, I never knew even existed. Exactly. Every single job that, that I ended up having, if you asked me a year before that, is that the job that you want? I was like, what is that job? I never, and that's the thing, you're not going to know what's ahead of you. But as long as, you lean forward and you give it the best go, inshallah, everything will work itself out.
Bro, just touching base on, you finished school at about 18 years old, yeah? And then you didn't go to uni or anything for about how many years after that?
I went to uni straight away.
Yeah.
And then dropped out after a little while. Yeah. And then went back into uni again and then dropped out. When it comes to actually completing a qualification, I was 27. Yeah, so for those 9 years between graduating school and getting my Cert 4, right, no qualifications. But even with that qualifications, I was able to actually get, these big opportunities on my resume, alhamdulillah.
Those experiences, coaching the boys, working with Melbourne Victory, from Heidelberg Stars, how much of an impact was having that experience?
Oh, it was
before you jumped full on, you said that you finished your education at 27,
Yeah, it was everything. And I think I learned so much from those opportunities. And one of my biggest lessons, right, and a lot of life's lessons are your toughest moments, right? It's about how do you handle those moments that actually make you who you are, At Melbourne Victory, I was very green. First full-time job, I'm over the moon. Also, I'm thinking this is the way work works is you come in, you do your job, and you're just guaranteed to always work there forever. So I said, this is my forever job. I had a 1 year contract. I did a lot of things amazing. Right, so I smashed the record of the amount of schools that were booked in a single term for programs. And that was one thing that on day one I asked the manager, what's the most schools you guys ever had? So I love targets, I love challenges, I love goal setting. Right, and that helped motivate me. Right, but then there's other things that I did that were kind of mistakes, and instead of going and to leadership and asking for support, I kind of try to fix them myself. And sometimes when you're young and green, ends up making things worse.
But you learn the best lessons.
And trust is a really important thing. So at the end of that 1 year contract, there was someone that joined the club maybe like 3 months prior to the end of my contract. And I'm a nice guy, I'm like, oh, cool, I'll train him up, show him the ropes and whatnot. And he ended up taking my role at the end of the 3 months. It was crazy.
Is it they took you out and put him in or what?
Yeah, he just replaced the role. He just So we're going through a restructure, didn't renew my contract, and then he took the exact role, that I was training him up for. And that's the way life works. But I think the biggest lesson for me was after that, right? I was like, oh, cool, I have Victory on my resume. I'll find another job easy. Started applying for jobs here and there, left, right, center. I got an interview with Melbourne City, and I didn't get the roles. And I'm like, damn, you know? And that's when I realized that I did all this body of work, right? And I have nothing to show for it. And that's when I actually made LinkedIn. So I actually deleted my Instagram, deleted my Snapchat that I was putting so much, hours into, but getting nothing out of, besides social, friends and all that kind of stuff. So I'm like, all right, well, let me just grind. So the next opportunity that I had was I went to ICV for a little bit, and then I got into Western Bulldogs. But when I got to Western Bulldogs, I just put my head down. Any opportunities, I was doing programs, post something up there, build my network, start connecting with people. And that was a massive sort of opportunity for me. And one of the things around that was like, so for me, like each organization that I've worked at, each time in my life had something that I've really gained a lot from. So Victory was around learning to, communicate better, right? When it comes to, you make a mistake, own up to it. People are not there to, to judge you on that all the time. And at Western Bulldogs, that's probably where I grew the most. Right? So the GM at the time, Cash, he'll work you proper, So I think I had my head down. I was doing programs in Footscray, right? But then doing Ballarat, Ararat, Grampians, Horsham, like driving 2-3 hours, Places I never even heard of, Hepburn, and you guys probably never heard of some of these.
I haven't heard of that right now.
So we're talking about mileage before too. You mentioned that you've been doing this.
Petrol was cheaper then, Alhamdulillah, but I was driving 3 hours and stuff, running programs, and I was working with kids that their ambitions to become farmers and stuff like that. Like I didn't really understand and relate, but it was actually a beautiful experience, and for them to actually connect with someone that that they've would have never crossed paths with, in their walk of life, and then bringing all of those kids together was beautiful. And there was one point in time where, in like less than a fortnight, I had 3 camps that I was running. Right, and you know how camps are. You're getting up. You're the first one up if you're running, and you're the last one to go to bed. You know what I mean? And then you need time to recover by the end of it. But like I had like 1 or 2 days in between. Boom, there goes the next camp and stuff. Right, but one thing for me that Alhamdulillah I was able to learn at a really young age was accountability. Right, and it's about if you decide to stay up late, that's on you. Right, so it's like cool. I signed up for this job. Right, so if I have 4 hours sleep, that's on me, right? I get up again, I go hard, and I keep working, I keep grinding. Eventually you have to find time to rest and recover and recuperate, right? And then you start making better choices when you start holding yourself accountable. Now I can't stay up till 2 a.m. and play FIFA with the boys. I need to go home, I need to go to sleep because I got this big thing coming up and stuff. So I think that was a place where I really sort of sharpened myself, and even how I got the opportunity is actually a very interesting one as well, because I was working at ICV. And they had a leadership program for, I think it was like 20 to 30 year olds, right? And I was like 24 then, 23. And they had like a few spots still left over. And they're like, you know what, why don't you just join this program? But I'm like, I don't know if I want to. And, but they're like, you know what, we'll count as your work hours. I'm like, oh, cool, now I'm going to get paid for it.
Yeah, done.
Over there. So it was like a leadership program with a mentoring element. And they asked you, like, what industry do you want your mentor to be in? I was like, oh, you know what, I love youth and I love sport. Okay, cool. So they linked me up with the general manager at Western Bulldogs for a coffee. Right, so we're going there for a coffee. And in this time as well, I'm running a program called Bright Young Minds. Like a program that's like, has a bit of cultural studies, religious studies. And at the end of it is sports, so either futsal, swimming, basketball, and the more the kids engage in the earlier parts of it, the more game time they'll get later. Right, so it kind of motivates them to actually go read their Quran, go do their homework and their Islamic studies and stuff. And then that was so I think we had about like 45 kids at one point, right? That were in the program, and when I met with him with Cash. The whole thing I wanted was like, can you get us some tickets, right? I'm like, I'm running this program, and then he's kind of like asking a lot of questions about the program, right? And I'm like, well, just give me some tickets, man. But he was kind of like, how many kids do you have? Are parents involved? Are they coming regularly? Do you have all this kind of stuff? And I'm like, all that's happening, but are there any tickets? Back to the question. And he was kind of like, listen, man, there's clubs and organizations that get funded hundreds of thousands of dollars, right, to engage the African community. And you're telling me at like 25 or 24, right, you and your mates got together and started this program, and now you're getting engagement, right? And I was like, and we had like a lot of Instagram followers at that point. We had more than the community foundation Instagram. At that point, now they have way more, but at that point we actually had more. So even like, you know, that sort of that media, that promotion, that engagement, that connection, that sort of holistic approach, it was like, wow, this is the kind of
phenomenal
things that we want to look for in our organization, you know. So subhanallah, like Allah has provided me the opportunity to work at ICV, right? To go into a mentorship program that I didn't even want anything to do with, right? To have a coffee with someone that I've never met and asking for tickets, and next minute I have a job.
And you get that,
You know, so you don't know where your blessings are coming from. I think that's the big lesson in that one. But yeah, alhamdulillah.
You know what I realized, I'm listening, throughout your journey, there's a lot of doors that closed, and then there'll be a period and then another door will open. So like during those little interims, did you ever have like thoughts of like, quitting or giving up or like, you know, losing that motivation and drive? And if you did, how did you turn it around, I guess?
Yeah, definitely. I think my toughest point for me was after that Melbourne victory, when that one hit hard, because it felt almost like completely out of my control. And like I said, I hit a lot of KPIs. At that point, I thought that's all that matters in workplaces, you know. I could have probably done a lot more with the sort of building more social connections and become a bit more part of the furniture and those kind of things. But I was like, nah, let me just look at my PD every day and make sure I'm smashing it, you know. That's all that mattered. And I also dropped out of uni for that opportunity. You know, my parents telling me, don't drop out, you know. And I'm like, you know what, nah, this is what I want to do, you know. And at that point too, I was like very passionate about soccer. I want to become a soccer coach. I'm like, I'm going to coach Real Madrid one day. You know, I'm going to be on the big screens. You know, so when I lost that opportunity, and now I don't have uni as well, you know, I dropped out of and stuff. And you know, my parents were obviously very disappointed in me, and I was disappointed in myself. And obviously, I struggled to, you know, find another opportunity, and it's kind of like thinking, where to from here? And that wasn't easy. But it's about having faith in Allah, you know, having tawakkul, you know, and that's not, you know, it's easier said than done. But I was able to, you know, find a few, you know, things here and there, like, you know, work in security, work in the warehouse to kind of get by for a little bit, and then kind of pick myself back up. But, you know, alhamdulillah, opportunities came. As a thing, like, you know, like you said, doors will close, but doors will open too. You know, it's about, you know, what's your perspective, right? And how do you keep yourself going? You know, it's really important.
100%. And one thing that speaks to me as well, well, mashallah, is every role that you've been doing, like, you know, you're taking something from it. There's all learning lessons that you're taking from it. You're being a student of it, you know, which is really good. And like you said, that opportunity with the guy just going for coffee, your intention wasn't even like, you know, to even get a job or a role from him. Your intention was just to purely, you know, get those tickets for the boys for the thing that you were doing, you know. So that's amazing. And now talk to us about currently right now, what is Salim doing?
Yeah, I think I'm doing a couple of things. I'm working primarily in the education sector, you know, working with African young people and other young people from sort of, you know, vulnerable backgrounds, and cultural education is a very big part of what I do, and it's about supporting young people to understand what their identity is, who they are, and build that resilience, you know. So I think for me, growing up as a young person, I had to learn about myself on my own. You know, I had a few mentors and stuff that kind of helped me along the way, but I think I'm learning more about African history, you know, more about Somali history now. And I always tell the young people that I work with is, you know, when I'm doing these cultural programs and I'm teaching you guys stuff about African history, I'm learning it as I'm teaching you.
Yeah,
you know, like same when I was, you know, coaching soccer and watching YouTube, right? I'm doing a bit of that study and education just to come back and multiply that for you guys, you know. And I think one of the things that's really a blessing for me is, like, I was very shy, I was very reserved, and you know, there's a lot of young people. I think Zaid came through to my school. There's a lot of young people that were 10 steps ahead of where I was in terms of their confidence, in terms of their engagement and stuff, right? But they don't see it themselves. And I think that's the beauty of being a youth worker. The way that I see the role of a youth worker is that we hold a mirror up to a young person, right, and we show them all the best parts of themselves, right? That's kind of how I look at my role, right? Because every time we look in the mirror, we might see something different, right? But you know, like similarly to those teachers that said, you know what, you are a leader, you are confident, you know. And there's one moment that really sticks with me in year 10, right? So I left East Preston at the end of year 9, and I wasn't very confident about my academic, you know, performances there. And then when I went to Reservoir District, I did an essay in English, right, a persuasive essay, and the teacher gave me an A+ with the arrow going up. And I'm like, what's this arrow about? You know, it looks a bit weird. And he goes, if I can give you higher than an A+, I would. You know, and I was like, whoa, like, and I was not very confident in my academics. So it's like little things like that make a huge difference. So to have the opportunity to be that for young people, for me, is an absolute blessing.
I wish I could hold the mirror up to you at an age. And I'll tell you what, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you're saying like, oh, I got into coaching and I didn't understand how I got into coaching. But what I've realized throughout your life, your patterns, in school, you were nominated to be school captain through the people.
Mm-hmm.
Then the people you carried on your team, you took them to win championships. Then you were embraced through all these sporting organizations. Then Parkville College, you were highly embraced for over 5 years. And that's not people who don't know, that's not a very common thing. So what I've realized is that you've always been that, but you just it may have been hard to see, you know. So that's why, going back to what even Sino said, is you need people like that in your life, you know, because you sometimes, no matter how much it's in front of you, you won't be able to see it unless you're able to have the reflective, you know, part of it.
Just touching base on that, I remember when I used to do roof plumbing, and if an apprentice was good, you know, you'd say, oh, you know, this bloke's smashing it out, you know. Or if it was like someone's son that's like on the job site, he'd be like, yeah, you're right. But I'd never tell him that. You get what I mean? So they had like a bit of a opposite perspective on that, you know? He'd be like, I'd never tell him, and we'll be like, why? He's like, because if I tell him that, then he's going to start thinking that he's too good. You get what I mean?
I think that, it's a case by case sort of thing. But I think one thing that becomes really challenging, especially for young people from like African background, is you know, a lot of our parents raise us with tough love, you know, because you know the environment around us isn't always, you know, the safest. You know, it's you have to have a hard exterior, you know, with the amount of, you know, racism that's prevalent in media, in social media, in society. You know, I think. And then you go into society, and there's tough love there as well. And you go into apprenticeships or other mentorship sort of opportunities, and if that's the only thing that you experience, and eventually you might start internalizing, you know, some of those narratives. I think it's like, you know, I think it's really important to push young people to challenge themselves, and, you know, not get a big head, right? But at the same time, it's about how do you actually, you know, vocalize some of it. You know, like, hey, listen, you're absolutely amazing, but you got a lot more to go.
Because you can even spark their mind. So if you compliment, or if you can see, you know, like, this person's got something special in a specific area, it can push them and motivate them to keep going, you know what I mean, in that direction.
100%.
And I've like I said earlier, I've been able to come into Salim School and meet some of the students and see the impact that he has on them, you know, and even like the potential in some of the kids is like unbelievable, you know, and you can tell that this is why it's also important to have someone who's been in those similar situations where they've had questionable confidence, and then having to later on find out, because a lot of those kids, they have way more confidence, way more potential and capabilities than we had. So you can, you know, when you look at something, you can feel like, I can really see, you know, if you stay solid where this trajectory is going, you know. Which is my next question is, what's one moment in the work where you've witnessed something, or you've been a part of something with a young person, and you said like, yeah, this is really why I do the work that I do, you know?
100%. I've been lucky enough to have a lot of those experiences, alhamdulillah, and I think it's just about, you know, which ones do you pick, which ones come to your mind really quickly,
peak,
you know?
the pinnacle was like that, you know?
What's the pinnacle?
The heart-stopping moment.
Yeah, there's this one, you know, really beautiful young person, you know, and I want to keep it de-identified, inshallah, but I was working really closely with him, and you know, obviously he's had his challenges with schooling, but also, you know, around how he was perceived from leadership, right? But I always saw the potential in him. And it got to a point where he actually got expelled from the school, right? And I was able to actually work with leadership to kind of, you know, work through the appeal process for him and kind of understand, you know, how he was and where some of the gaps were for him in the past. And then, you know, the expulsion got overturned. And then the next year, he became, you know, co-captain of the class, and, you know, it was like almost like he was allergic to getting in trouble. And it's just, you know, it's like, that's the person I saw.
So you rectified this expulsion. You took it, like, you were able to keep him back into the school.
Yeah, through the right processes. You know, through, you know, supporting the parents with that process, and kind of, you know, working with leadership in the background around, you know what, this is where I think, you know, some of the shortcomings were for the young person, right? Because he's obviously presenting a certain way, and you know, trauma-informed praxis tells us that, you know, behavior is a form of communication. You know, young people are not able to vocalize what they're going through or what they're experiencing, or, you know, where they need help at times, but they'll show you through their behavior, you know. So yeah, I was like, you know what, this is what this young person is trying to communicate, right? This is what he also has vocalized to me, separate. This is what I've observed, you know, and kind of putting some of those pieces together. And yeah, alhamdulillah, you know, he came back, and he was just absolutely, you know, the most beautiful young person that you can imagine in the school. He became, you know, the kind of the face of that year level.
Get back of the year, huh?
Yeah, and I was like, that's what I saw the whole time. I'm like, none of this is new to me. I saw that from the get go, you know. And I think even like when you came to my school the other day, and we were talking about with the year 9, 10 students, we were talking about, you know, who are some people that you want to make proud, you know, and they're talking about, you know, my mom and, you know, this and that one. And one of the students said, you know, you know, and that was mad. I was like, don't make me cry. Because nothing's more important, you know, than that to me. And it's not about, you know, myself of, you know, trying to be like, oh yeah, I'm important and stuff, but it's like, you know, I'm having that impact.
It's that affirmation,
the work is meaningful. I'm doing the right thing, because with young people, oftentimes you don't know, you know, and Zaid, you know, you work in some of the toughest spaces, you know, and sometimes you just don't know, and then they'll let you know, and you're like, you know, it's been 2-3 months of like, I'm questioning myself, am I doing the right thing? Am I helping them progress and stuff? But you know, eventually they get to the point where, you know, through your modeling, they realize, you know what, I can be vulnerable, I can be appreciative, and they'll let you know, and you're like, this is everything to me.
Because I can imagine, like, you might be working with them for a term or a year, and you don't really get much, because they're kids by the end of the day, you know. Then something like that, you know, like, who do you want to make proud? Who do you not want to let down? Turn around and be like, you're like, fuck. I am that person in this child's life that I would have had to, you know, wish I had actually.
100%.
You know? SubhanAllah, man.
With the, you know, working in the educational sector as well, what's one thing if you could actually change, you know, currently in the educational sector, what would that be?
That's a very good question, to be honest, but
don't forget he works there right now.
Nothing to get in trouble, you know.
To be honest, I think the biggest thing is the funding of public schools. I think they're definitely underfunded, and you know, we saw the strike the other day of teacher salaries. There's like 35,000 teachers that protested and stuff. So I think that's definitely, you know, there's a lot more that, you know, wanted to protest but maybe didn't, because they're like, you know, we've got to at least have someone at school to, you know, keep the kids safe. So I think that's really important. You know, teachers are really important in the work that they do, particularly in the public sector, you know, because I think private is very select entry, and, you know, if a kid's mucking around, they can, you know, get rid of them easier and stuff. And I think public schools is kind of where, you know, we try to work through everything with the young person, you know. So I think that's one thing. I think the other thing is around sort of diversity, you know, but I think that comes with time. I think with, you know, as first generation Australians and so on and so forth, you know, we'll have more teachers eventually come through the pipeline. We'll have more people in leadership positions and more representation, you know. So I think that's going to be something that hopefully comes with time. But if I had a magic wand, I think, funding's probably the first thing.
Fair enough.
Funding, and I think the thing that we relate to is the passion of curating programs. So like, you're not a teacher, right? You're like I said, education consultant in my eyes. So what I was able to witness was your ACE program. So, you know, the African Cultural Education program. So, I guess some people who are not in your school, or people don't get to be a part of it, what is that, you know, and where did it come from? And without giving too much of it, but what's the overview of it, you know?
I think the good thing that for me in terms of my experience is that I have had over a decade of experience when it comes to program delivery and workshop delivery. So at Western Bulldogs, I was leading the Youth Leadership Project, which was a sort of a leadership program that, you know, caters to, you know, over 150 young people at a time from all walks of life. Wow. You know, so it's about how do you consistently, you know, engage them and connect with them and stuff. And then I've done work with, you know, councils around leadership. I've, you know, worked within education sectors. I've done, you know, work at Parkville, kind of understanding what the gaps are for young people and how to engage them and how to build their resilience and self-confidence and self-trust. And, you know, so I've been able to actually, you know, take a lot of those learnings and experiences and put them together and deliver a really meaningful and impactful cultural education program. And I think the really important things for my group of young people is that they learn about themselves, you know, they learn about their history. Because one thing that often happens is when it comes to African history and media, we learn about, you know, the not so great things, right? Or we learn about, you know, things in a particular lens that might not be the truthful lens, you know, around previous leaders and, you know, what they really stood for and you know, and the amount of natural resources that are in Africa and you know, how that becomes the reason why there's, you know, we're being exploited for those resources and continues to, you know, perpetuate, you know, civil unrest or, you know, unrest by, you know, Western powers, you know, with colonization and stuff and what decolonization means for us and, you know, the powerful history, you know, with Mansa Musa being the wealthiest man ever in the history of the world, you know. We hear about Elon Musk and his trillions, but we don't hear about, you know, Mansa. So I think it's about really empowering them to be like, you know what, you came from greatness, you're gonna get back to greatness.
Mm.
And that's who you are, and that's built within you, and you're
Powerful.
so resilient.
Mm.
You know, and our young people, like I said, they grow up really fast. You know, they're translators by the age of 12. They take care of their younger siblings. You know, at a very young age, they're going out and getting groceries, and you know, they grow up really quickly. And I think sometimes, you know, schools are places where they want to be children again, and muck around and stuff, which then they get pulled up for and stuff. You know, so it's about, you know, giving them opportunities to be themselves in a safe sort of way, but also learn and grow. You know, and show them that they can do it. You know, so when they have someone in front of them that's, you know, completed his masters, right, they're like, you know what, I can do that too. You know, of course you can. You know, I've had my, you know, my journeys and my difficulties along the way, and my challenges with sort of stuttering and other things as well. So if I can do it, you can.
Yeah,
you know? That's the important thing.
No, that's beautiful. How about obviously with, you know, going out of high school, you did say, you know, you did study like twice, do two different bachelors and like didn't complete it. So what would you tell the people that are, you know, the students that are graduating from year 12 that just don't have it all figured out, you know?
And that's a common thing too, where you start something thinking that's your be all end all, and then you have to divert. You know?
100%.
You kind of beat yourself up for not completing something as well. Or if you feel like it's not for you, you kind of have this drive to complete it.
Yeah.
You know,
But generally I see there's a lot of people, you know, where like academics, that's the only thing that they're focusing about, like 10, 11, 12, focusing hard on it, and then they still just don't know what they want to do. And that's okay, and that's totally right, you know?
100%.
So what's one thing that you would tell those people?
Yeah, I would say kids? Like, if you're not sure where you want to go, oftentimes it's that you don't know yourself well enough. Like, that's the honest truth. For me, when I did pharmaceutical sciences and I did health information management and these kind of things, right, it's because my parents wanted me to pursue sciences and do that. And because I didn't know what I wanted, I'm like, cool, I'll just go with, you know, with your opinion instead. Maybe that's, you know, the way for me. But once I got into, you know, the opportunities that I was having earlier on and stuff, and then I learned about community development and youth work, I'm like, that sounds like something I'm very, very passionate about. So I think once I had that direction, then I was able to complete all of my studies because I had the motivation for it, I had the connection for it. So I think for young people that are not sure what they want to do, like there's, you know, different career quizzes that you can do. There's different people that you can speak to build experiences and stuff. And I think, you know, one thing that's really, really important for African young people is that oftentimes we don't engage with well-being. We don't engage with careers at schools. And I think it's about, you know, how do we provide more opportunities for that? So there's a few things in the pipeline around addressing some of those needs for young people, particularly in the West. But yeah, I think that's really important. Like, I think if you're not sure where you want to go, right, start with what am I good at? What do I like? What am I passionate about? You know, if you don't know what you're passionate about, you're not trying enough things. So go out and try enough things. You know, I think I saw this one video a little while ago that was like amazing, because sometimes we have to say things in the language of young people, right? So it's like, you know, life's like a video game. You know, you have your main quest, right? But you also have side missions. So if you're not doing enough side missions, you're not earning enough XP at points, you know, to level up. Build up 100%.
You do your main mission.
Yeah, 100%. You know, when you get to the final boss, you haven't built up enough armor, you know. So I think that's the important thing. It's about, you know, how many side missions are you doing? You know, so for me, poetry was one thing that I started doing at a really young age, you know. And I did it through like a year 10 class. I was doing like a Shakespeare homework, you know, session, and I did my friend's homework too because he didn't like it. And teacher's like, oh, you're actually pretty good at this. And I got into some you know, scenes that were doing a bit of poetry and stuff like that. But then when I stepped into performing, right, I didn't want to, right? But then there was a couple of you know, young leaders from my community, you know, Hamid and Munira, who were organizing events and stuff, and they're like, you know what, you have to perform. Especially Hamid, who pulled me by the ear and took me onto the stage, and I was like, wow, this is nerve wracking, right? But I went into that stage. I went there like 2 hours. I was the first person there. I was just rehearsing, and I was like, as I was rehearsing, I was like adding other little elements into my performance and stuff. And when I got onto stage, there's this one part where, like, you know, and then I saw change, like, in my life, right? But then when I said that, I dropped coins, right? So instead of change, it was like, you know, the double entendre. The crowd went nuts. But guess what? I also forgot my lines. Right, but
after it,
the response was so loud. You're like,
the crowd went, they went off for long enough for me to remember my lines. Keep going. So that was a hectic experience, and I think I kind of fell in love with the adrenaline, right, of like going on stage, and you know, it's like the heart, you know, rate goes crazy. So alhamdulillah, that was something that also, like, you know, I did that. I did, you know, organizing community events and stuff. Then I was thrown into hosting an event and all these different things that, you know, I didn't want to do, but just somehow ended up in these opportunities. But I was always kind of like, you know what, if I'm there, I want to give it my best go. So I think those kind of things helped make me well-rounded, you know. And like you can do courses and drop out of it, but what do you take from it? You know, so for me now as a youth worker, right, a lot of my work is data backed and evidence backed. A lot of youth workers don't have that data lens. You know, so for me it's like you know, it gives me a different tool in my tool belt. So I think it's about, can you take something from every experience you have, you know?
And will we be seeing some more of that? Like, are you still doing the poetry stuff, or have you?
Yeah,
Obviously, I know your workload is ridiculous. This guy workload makes my workload look like manageable.
Back in the days, I don't do as much as I used to. I performed like a couple of months ago at an event, so you know, with the right opportunity, I might dip my toes into it and stuff. But I think I slowed down a lot with that. You know, life gets busy, and you know, but I try to write here and there, but I write a lot shorter ones now than I used to. Back in the day, I used to go ages. Very emotional young man.
Yeah. You know what a practice.
Beautiful. You gotta let it out, man. You gotta let it out.
Yeah, that was my way to vent, to kind of get things off my chest, you know. And there's a lot of, you know, it's not all. I think a lot of young men, you know, especially young black men, think poetry is a very soft thing, you know. It's kind of, but you know
that. That was like cringe.
Yeah, 100%. You know, but it's just rap, you know, in a different format, you know. And I think, I've got some, you know, obviously some lovey-dovey ones, but I also got some ones that are about, you know, hardship and stuff like that. Some about friendship, some about things. And I think one of the things that, you know, now that I reflect, you know, I go back and I read some of them, right? It's like a moment in time. It's a memory. So it's like kind of like a drawing, right? I can remember the emotions that I felt in that moment when I was writing those words. Right? So for me, it's like a beautiful thing that I can look back at. Like, man, in that moment I was going through this. In that moment I was going through that. You know, so it's kind of, it's almost like a picture you can look back at. You know, so I think that was really beautiful for me. And I think a lot of my ones are around like life lessons and those kind of things. So it's kind of almost like timeless. If I was to post them now, I'd still kind of, you know, it's still about like relatable. Inshallah, one day I want to work on a book. I've been saying that for like 5-6 years now, but you know, one day it'll happen, inshallah.
Inshallah, man. Inshallah.
You know what a good practice? Like, I used to be like heavily obsessed with like, you know, wordplay and rapping and stuff. But one way I would continue to try and practice it, just to even test myself to see if I have it, is even having like a social media account. And instead of like nowadays, you ChatGPT and it fix me up a bio, or you write something, but even putting that as some of the captions to some of the stuff you post, you know, just to always keep it funny. Because I don't think, even if you stop doing poetry, I don't think it's something worth not practicing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
Creativity will always be there if you have it.
Yeah, 100%. So I still write stuff here and there, not you know, to the same length that I used to back in the days, but it's a good way for also to kind of get things off my chest, you know. And I didn't even know that was something that was really helpful for my mental health, you know. And that's another thing that we don't really talk about as black men, you know. And I think for me, oftentimes I would like escape, you know, things that I'm, you know, maybe going through and stuff by trying not to be alone, trying to find, you know, haps and, you know, let's go eat, let's go here and there and whatnot. And I thought, you know, I just loved going out all the time. Just bottle it up. And then once I got my own space and I got married, alhamdulillah, then it's like, nah, I don't leave the house. How come I was always trying to leave the house before, you know? So I think it's about, you know, lockdown was one where I really realized that, you know, mental health is a real thing. Right, you have to be able to, you know, manage yourself, you know, outside of going for runs and walks and stuff, which I never did before, right? Just because, you know, you're always cooped up in one space in that sense, and you know, you need to find ways to actually address it, you know, mindfulness and, you know, taking like, you know, slow mindful showers and stuff like that, which I would have never thought that was actually, you know, something that would actually have a positive impact on me. But, you know, we all have a brain, we all have, you know, thoughts like that go through it, we all have, you know, insecurities and things like that, and if we don't address some of those hardships, you know, ourselves, then it'll fester. Yeah, you know, it'll grow.
100%. Wow. How much takeaways today, man?
Yeah, I'll run it back and I'll take my do the scene.
We have to. So we have to, bro. Yeah. No, mashallah, man.
I've got a question. Is if you could speak to the younger version of Salim, so whether it's the coach Salim, Love and Victory, or Huddle Salim.
So many different hats.
Yeah, that's what I don't know. Studying just chemistry Salim, you know, education and leadership Salim. Like at any point, I'll let you choose which point to refer to. But what would you say, or what advice would you give to your younger self? Just to maybe reinstill some confidence at the time.
I would probably speak to the Salim that's like 15, 16 years old.
Yeah,
and all I would say is like believe in yourself. Like believe in yourself, back yourself. It'll all work out. You know, because I think in that age, you know, you're kind of like really not sure of yourself. You're going through the phases where, like, when you're really young and you know, it's just all about you, and then you start going into, you know, building more social connections through your, you know, developmental phases and stuff like that. And that's about what do friends think, what do they think about me, and you know, all those things that you know. And then you get older, and it's about, you know, am I doing the right thing? Am I in the right career? You know, am I making my parents proud? Am I making myself proud? You know, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, 100%. And I think one of the things that you know, throughout my experiences, you know, you have that imposter syndrome. You know, when I worked at Victory, when I first got into Western Bulldogs and all of these things, now alhamdulillah I'm able to really back myself. But a lot of times I was like, man, what am I doing here in this big ass company? You know, this is you know, one of the biggest, you know, organizations in the whole country. You know, you know, am I the right person? How did I end up here?
You feel like you don't belong.
100%. You know, you look around you, and there might not be as much diversity and stuff. But even when I was studying Bright Young Minds, right, that program that connected cultural education with sports and stuff as a motivator, I actually thought of the idea 2 years before it actually came about, you know, and I sat with some of the community elders and leaders and stuff, and I was like, I have this vision, right, because our young people, you know, might not be necessarily connected to their education as much as they should be. You know, they might be going through the motions with their religious studies, right, and then sports is a massive factor for them, right, that they absolutely love. But if we bring it together and use that as a motivator throughout the other experiences, right, could that be really, you know, a positive thing for our community? And it was around like, oh, it's too hard to kind of bring these things together. Duxis are very rigid in how they work, and you know, trying to get sheikhs on board for that, but also, you know, when are you going to do it, all that kind of stuff. So I was like, you know, they're older than me, they know better. I'm gonna let it go, right? 2 years on, I'm like, all right, you know, I feel like there's a gap here, you know. Let me just give it a go, and you know, brought some friends together, and we like, you know what, we're just gonna go for it. And even when I was gonna go for it, I had a conversation with my mom about it. And my mom was like, you know what, the local sheikh, you know, that has a duxi, same place that you're trying to do this program, you know, you might be stepping on their toes and stuff like that. And I think my mom was making a lot of excuses for me to not go ahead with it, but from a point of trying to protect me, right? Because what happens then is that I didn't know this yet at a young age, especially coaching at 19 and this program, you know, in my mid 20s and stuff, like there's a lot of responsibilities, you know, as a young person, you know, to hold your community, you know, it's so important. And I think a lot of young people, you know, would often, you know, look at me like, you know, as an older brother, as a mentor, you know, as a father figure at times. And, you know, there's aunties that would call me for things that, you know, when they need support and stuff like that. And I was, you know, had really, really big shoes to fill. And I think she's trying to kind of, you know,
protect you.
Yeah, ask me to focus on myself rather than, you know, the community and protect me from that, you know. But I was like, you know what, I was stubborn. That, you know, I'm like, nah, I have a vision, you know, we're gonna pull through. And obviously she gave me her blessings, and we gave it a go. And, you know, there was moms that came out to me, you know, 3 to 6 months down the line, and they were like, you know, we were always trying to, you know, force our young people to pick up the Quran, you know, force them to go to these classes and stuff. And it was always a struggle. But now on Saturday mornings, right, they would actually wake us up and be like, hey, I want to make sure that I actually know my surahs, right, because I want to play more sports later on, right? So they were like, it just completely changed the way they perceive it and stuff. And it was such a beautiful thing. And you know, we had like 82 kids across the time that we were functioning, and it ended right before COVID, right? And I think it was beautiful, you know. And we won several awards, you know, in our first like 3 months of running. We won the sort of the youth initiative award. I can't remember, it was an African organization that provided. Like, we want to be running for like 3 months, you know. We won the Victorian Young Achievers semi-finalists for that as well. So like, we were getting all this recognition. We were on the age. We actually had a section on that as well. So it's like, you know, once again, just trying to do something positive for my community, and all these exposure and opportunities and blessings came through. But it's about, you know, if I backed myself 2 years before that, you know, what would that look like? You know, if I backed myself, you know, at the very start of some of the jobs that I've had earlier, you know, what would that look like? You know, so I think that the thing that's really important for a young me to kind of hear is just believe in yourself, man. You know, you can do anything. Sky's the limit. You know?
Even if it's mom and dad, you know, trying to protect you from fear, even though they mean well, you got to back yourself. And if you feel like, you know, it's go time, then it's go time.
And sometimes not everybody would understand, like, you know, what's going through your mind as well.
100%.
So, that's very important, bro. And like what you said as well, if you started 2 years ago, I feel like sometimes it's like things in life just happen at that right time. You
100%,
know? I feel like, who knows how it all went, but I feel like everything in life for you generally just happens at the time that, you know, it needs to happen.
100%. Allah's, you know, we plan, but Allah's the best of planners, you know. And that's a really important thing. But it's also about understanding that sometimes even people that are older than you, that are wiser than you, right? Sometimes they don't have all the answers.
Exactly.
You know, so sometimes
Everyone's navigating
yeah,
life.
yeah,
Everyone.
100%.
Yeah.
I think one big thing, you know, in the African community, but it might be in other communities too, is, you know, where if people can't see themselves doing, you know, a particular vision, then they look at you and be like, you know, how can you do it?
How are you gonna do it?
You know, that's where that comes in. They're like, you know what, they can't see themselves do it, but you know what?
Yeah.
Everything that has happened in life, right, there was the first time for it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you could be that first person to do it. You know, so yeah, back yourself, believe in yourself, right, and everything else will come through. If it doesn't work out, you know, learn from it.
Yeah.
What are the lessons?
100%.
What an amazing conversation, man.
Mate.
Yeah, what an amazing
This
episode.
can keep going on. This can keep going on, huh? This can keep going on for days on end, man. But man.
I got a question just before we do close the episode. Is we will put some of your links at the bottom just for people who want to get in contact with you and maybe ask you some questions.
Yeah.
But what can we see, or what can we expect from Salim in the next couple of years from now, without again revealing too much? But you know, what are some things in the pipeline?
Honestly, the truth about it is that I'm someone who doesn't plan too far ahead. You know, so I don't even know what's in store.
Yeah, surprise
you know,
yourself.
100%. But all I know is
Did you know his story, man? He just lives with it now. All his story, if you look at it,
It'll be an astronaut by December.
He just stumbles into something, man.
He made champions from YouTube videos.
Man,
coaching
every
YouTube
career,
videos.
every career he spoke about, man, was just like, I stumbled across that. You know what I mean?
I love it,
Just
man.
from applying himself, man. So
I generally don't plan too far ahead. I just kind of, you know, live in the here and now, as you said. And I think, you know, if you do the best that you can in the moment, you know, things will line up. I've obviously got a few, you know, big projects, you know, underway this year, with you know, the school that I'm working at and a couple of other things across the department. And yeah, hopefully that poetry book lines up this year, inshallah. I think.
Now we need that book. We need that book, man. Yeah,
100%. And then everything else is in Allah's hands. Inshallah.
What a guy, man. And hopefully we'll be able to have you back on once the book is out, and some of those things that you say are in the pipelines are brought to life, because there's not enough time. You know, I want to continue these conversations some of the time. You know, so
for sure.
But look, Salim, man, nothing short of a pleasure. You know, it's been an honor to have you, and it will definitely, I speak on behalf of everyone here at Tapped In, it will not be the last time. We bring you back here, inshallah. You know, so
thank you. Likewise,
ladies and gentlemen, one of a kind is a one of one, and all the links will be at the bottom if you want to engage, communicate, or tap in. No pun intended. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, Salim.